What is going on, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to a very special episode of The Kingdom Says. We've got a full barn in the building today because it is a very special day in Chiefs Kingdom. As you can already tell by the title, and as anyone's seen the news cycle, Chris Jones has finally signed a long-term deal with Kansas City. So it's a great day. We're going to break that one down today. I am your co-host. I am your usual co-host, as always, Garrett Williams, and joining me, we've got Kyle Henning on the top right of the screen. How are we doing today, Kyle?
Doing all right. All this started happening last night, and we started discussing potentially jumping on and getting after it last night. And then there was a whole bunch of, well, we don't really have details. So we thought we'd probably hang out, let some stuff cook for a little while, and see what came out. And I think we've got some more info now, so we can discuss.
Got some more.
Yeah,
we've got a little more to dive into.
Exact information, which we never get, but we don't even have what we usually get yet. So.
Yes. Also join us, Arrowhead Tom, at the bottom left of the screen. How you doing today, Tom?
Hey, I tell you what, I'm doing well. I was actually working last night when the news broke, and so for those who don't know, I bounce at a club on the weekends, and the guy who DJs and owns the club is a huge Chiefs fan, so I got to let him know, and we had a cool moment where we got to announce the extension, and the whole club went wild. So It was a cool little moment. And I felt like I was cool because I was the one who slipped in a little piece of paper. I said, Chris Jones, 5 years. And it was pretty cool. So I think, you got to be excited for Chris, for the city, for the team. I know people have opinions about the cap structure, and I don't want to get too much of that. We don't even know enough details, I think, to have a fully informed opinion.
So we're going to do our best.
Who's claiming to know absolutely whether or not this is a good deal. And you don't know. You don't know if it's a good deal or a bad deal right now. You won't know until later. That's the whole point. But, you just got to be excited for Chris right now.
Got to be excited. A lot of excitement in the building today. And then at the bottom right of the screen, Mr. Randy Ellenberger. How you doing today, Randy?
Doing awesome. I am doing awesome. Very, very excited and relieved, as I'm sure we all are, that this major obstacle in our off season has been cleared and secured, and now we can move forward with a couple other questions and some other scenarios and lists and stuff that we want to talk about with other free agents and things. Now that might clear up some new space and some new spots, and officially ready to get this full free agency machine rolling. So.
Yeah, this is the first domino really to fall. We re-signed Drew Tranquil too, which I think is breaking news. I don't know if we talked about that on this pod yet. So this is really the first major piece that the Chiefs have been looking for. And obviously this has been a year plus long negotiation basically that happened, all the way at the beginning of last offseason, ended up with Chris Jones holding out the entirety of training camp and week one before coming back on a revised 1-year deal. And now, once again, before free agency starts, luckily this time, the Chiefs and his agents, who is still the same agents that he had last year, he did not ditch them, unfortunately for most people, but they did get a deal done. I'm sure it was a lot. Well, we'll talk about how the deal probably went down, but safe to say, good for Chris Jones because he got paid. He got a lot more than a lot of people expected him to get. But really the overall feeling, at least from me, and I think a lot of Chiefs Kingdom, is relief. It's like we don't got to worry about this anymore. Chris Jones is going to be back for the three-peat opportunity to help lead that defense, be a cornerstone of that defense this is probably going to be his whole career now. He's probably going to finish his career as a Chief more than likely. So it's really cool. The numbers. We'll dive into the numbers and what that means for the Chiefs, but just the concept of having Chris Jones under a long-term contract is great. That's just great news. It's been a long time coming, and he's obviously meant a lot to this team and this defense, already winning 3 Super Bowls. So it's good to have him back. It's definitely good. It was a little unexpected with free agency coming up. I think per many reports, the Chiefs wanted to get this done before free agency officially opened because Otherwise, that price tag probably goes up a little bit.
You never want to. Yes.
Yeah.
So to a couple of Garrett's points. So actually, you said it's been about a year and a half, and I would tell you it's probably been closer to 2.5, working on 3 years for them actually working on this deal. Which I'm sure Brett Beach is like, thank God we are done with that conversation.
Lose their number. Yeah.
Now you just gotta work on Creed and Nick and everybody else that is coming down the pipeline.
Well, and that's fine. But this specific deal being the amount of time that it took, being the amount of energy invested, also it is great for them to have him in the building. He's their third piece pillar. He's the other side of the ball. He's the big guy on the defense, and they needed to make somebody paid on the defense, and it kind of had to be him. And that's nothing to L'Jarius and any of the other guys, but he's the guy that's been there since 2016. He's been your horse. You've built your defense around him. You finally have your defense built around him. You can't let him walk. And to Chris's credit, and I'm saying Chris's credit, and I'm going to be very clear about where credit goes on that portion of the stuff, because I've already seen things like, well, you got to give them. No, you don't. You don't have to give those two idiots an ounce of credit for anything that took place here, and we'll get into why later. But to Chris's credit, he bet on himself. He bet on himself last year backed into a corner and I don't have another choice in a situation, and it worked. He's bet on himself the deal prior to this, and it worked. He's bet on himself every single time, and he's lived up to everything he's bet on. And that is what I think allows you to feel, if you're apprehensive about giving this deal to a 30, 31, 32-year-old guy, that you can feel a little bit better about. Every time he has bet on himself, he has hit the expectations he bet on and then benefited from them. So good for Chris. He got paid. He got closer to his number. When we get into the numbers and stuff, we'll talk more about why I think he got closer to that number and how this deal eventually ended up being where we got. But what we've got is Chris for at least the next 3 years. So that's good news, and they'll be after 3. Tom, I'm sure you have plenty on that same page of thoughts.
Yeah. So I'm just I was looking up while you're talking. I think from a legacy perspective and from a historical perspective, you have Travis Kelce, you have Patrick Mahomes, you have Andy Reid, and then Chris Jones is that other guy, right, on that Mount Rushmore of this dynasty. I think one of the coolest things, so we know Travis is going to finish his career here. Barring something very unusual happening, Andy Reid is going to finish his career in Kansas City. Now it seems that Chris Jones is probably going to do that. Obviously Pat is the youngest of the 4, and so it's hard to imagine him playing in another uniform, right? But I'm sure that people said that about Tom Brady and Peyton Manning at one point.
That's true.
That's a problem to worry about 7 years from now, 8 years from now.
10 years from now.
I think that there's something cool to be said about historically about
Tom is shortening his career far more than I would like.
Yeah, a Hall of Fame player getting to play and finish his career in the place that he was drafted in. And also you talk about like the it being built around him, and let's remember this guy was drafted by the Bob Sutton led Chiefs defense.
We don't like to utter that name, Tom. We don't talk.
He was playing with guys like Alan Bailey and Jay Howard when he got here.
Jesus, will you stop? You're going to trigger people's PTSD.
Alan Bailey was kind of dog, though. I mean, he was kind of dog.
Alan Bailey was a dog. He was playing in a completely different system. He was asked to do different things. He was a 3-4 defensive end, right? Like he was playing with So I'll just put this out there. You know who was still on the roster when Chris Jones got here his rookie year? Justin Houston, Eric Berry.
There's lots of names that I can go through.
Tom Mahaly.
He knows Tom as a teammate, not as a mentor like George does.
Yeah.
That's the different.
So
now, probably still mentor because Tombo was one of those guys and Chris was a rookie, but we also knew him as a teammate.
Right.
Yeah. But he's been here, and he's also seen guys come and go, right? You think about Frank Clark and everything that he, they talked all the time about Frank Clark and his identity.
Every dude you just mentioned, skip before Frank Clark. Every guy's name you just mentioned, he watched get the house cleaning when they did the Bob Sutton and everything else, and Chris was like, the Will Smith gif was like, who? Where did everybody go?
So again, the other thing I'll say, because I've seen this on Twitter, it's, you're paying him this amount of money for this many sacks per year. If you
stop using counting stats, please.
Yeah, I would say if you use sacks as the metric for Chris Jones's worth, I need you to go ahead and log off. I need you to go. You know what? You know what would be great for you? Why don't you go watch some baseball?
They will yell at you too. They don't like the counting stats either anymore. They will yell at you. They will yell at you more. The new age in that will yell at you more than the NFL new age because they don't like counting stats more than anybody. They have created. You guys think there's advanced analytics in football? Please go look at the advanced analytics page in baseball. There are acronyms and letters symbols. There's omegas and things out there.
Go watch some NASCAR, maybe. Maybe go watch some NASCAR. NASCAR's always
go
good.
watch some NASCAR.
Yeah, there's a counting stat. Yeah, did you win or not? How many laps did you lead?
Yep, there you go. How many times did you turn left? All of them.
My point being,
not
his impact on the field is a lot more than just.
You want some counting stats? George Karlaftis had 10.5 sacks, and a large part of that was Chris Jones being on the field.
Yeah,
I have to give. I was listening to. I don't remember. There was a ton of content being pushed last night as soon as Chris signed, but somebody and one of our great Chiefs Kingdom podcast content creator groups, Chris Jones accounted for 75% of their pressures and sacks with him on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Like 75% of their pass rush generated while he's on the field. So that means on every other snap. Now, he plays a lot, which is another thing. He plays more snaps than 95% of D tackles in the league.
Mm-hmm.
He's on the field every down.
Yeah, you're right, Randy. He's really not a D tackle is a way to.
That's what he used to be, though.
He's a pass rusher, really.
He used to be a D tackle. Now he's an everything again because he lets him be. But that's the other piece. They built the defense around the movable piece. They can move him anywhere they want with the other guys they have around him, and they're going to have to put more guys around him now because several of those guys, Mike Dana, will not be getting paid. Sorry, Mike. Well, he'll be getting paid, just
not
from us. Yeah, a couple guys that will be pardoned.
Derek Nottie probably will not be returning to Kansas City at this point.
Yeah, especially with the amount of free agents that the Chiefs had, securing a guy like Chris Jones. I mean, that's a no-brainer with all the other turnover that's going to happen on the D line. It's pretty crucial to have him back. Randy, what do you think?
Like I said, it's just such a chess piece.
Yeah, so say we didn't sign Chris and he left in free agency, signed somewhere else. You're going to have to bring in at least 3 guys, to try to take up just the kind of rotational player or the different types of skill set or just the sheer number of bodies to play the snaps that he does, to be as versatile as he does, and to try to get that production. You're going to need at least 3 guys. So signing Chris to his contract is largely like signing 3 other players to fill that one spot. So you're going to spend that money on Chris, a proven commodity, a stud, a dude at the top of his game, or 3 gadget piece players that you got to try to put together, put them in the right place, and try to move.
And
those
you have to hit that button every time. You have to put them in the right spot every time.
Exactly, and you have to hit on the actual
on all of them.
Yeah.
So it's to me, it's a no-brainer.
So
pay Chris his money. He is the piece that we move around and that we build around, and he is the focal point of our defense. But I think the headache potentially of dealing with the contract down the road is going to be less than the headache of trying to fill his shoes with 3 different players and those contracts and those situations and moving them and putting them in the right place all the time.
So you bring up something that I think that part of it is one of the bigger keys. Also, I keep seeing this. Well, there's younger cheap players that were cheaper that can do the same thing. Who?
Right.
Show me who. I'm not trying to be mean, but legitimately,
Yeah.
who can do all of the
There's
things? that
nobody
Chris
on the free
Jones does?
agency list right now that can do everything that Chris can do.
The closest guy, by a ways, according to most, that was going to be available, the Ravens paid $24.5 million to.
Right.
I was about to say closest to money
That's
wise.
the second happiest franchise about Chris Jones's deal is because that deal got signed before Chris's deal. Because otherwise,
Yeah.
ouch.
I mean, that
You
was
know
kind
who-
of that was going to be that one had to be done first before Chris's ever gets announced,
Oh,
even though they weren't even in the same ballpark of deals. But
if you're the Ravens, you have to.
Ravens are
because
like, okay,
as soon as Chris's deal comes out, like Christian Wilkins is like, well, I'm not getting that, but I'm getting more.
Christian Wilkins going to get a lot. Yeah,
Christian
Christian Wilkins
was
is the
probably
only.
going to get in that 25, 26 range.
Exactly.
Now you're pushing 20.
And he was, and so when you talk about
27.5,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
the cap went up and Chris just said, well, Aaron Donald's number's not off the table anymore because Chris just touched it. So
I mean, you talk about filling Chris's shoes potentially. Like you said, the only other potential free agent who's
Telling
out
an
there
hour,
is Christian Wilkins, and you're still paying him 26, 27 million, and you still don't even get all the production that you would have with Chris Jones. You still need at least another guy or two to fill that.
Well, and you're racing to get Christian Wilkins signed before somebody else
someone else
signs
does,
Chris
yeah.
Jones to $36 million, because then we're in a whole different ballgame of
There'd
what
be a little bit of a Jawan Taylor Orlando Brown situation where the Chiefs get
gotta
out real
strike
early in free agency and get
and
a
that
deal
is
done.
why Jawan Taylor's contract is the flat contract that it is.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's talk about let's bring up the real what the reported numbers, what we know so far with Chris Jones's deal. Obviously, the big selling point was a 5-year deal with $95 million guaranteed. Practically, the reports were guaranteed. So by all accounts, 5 years,
It specifically says
$95
practically
million.
in the report. That's why I said it on purpose.
Schefter practically, that's crazy.
In report, I believe Ian Rappaport put practically guaranteed in the tweet on purpose.
Right. Yeah. So
it
that was the big.
Ian broke it first. I know everybody's giving credit to Shefty.
That's true. That's
Ian's
true.
tweet was out first, and Ian had the
Ian
practically
broke
guaranteed
the deal. I think Schefter had the first numbers on it. Regardless, good on them. But I will say, so 5 years, 100 or 95 million. Very quickly though, the reporting came out. More of a 3-year deal. With 2 years of a potential voidable funny money type deal.
Well, they got to the agent. Okay, everybody got what they wanted. This whole by the numbers that we've heard so far, the agents got to say the words highest average salary.
Yep.
Even if, as Garrett pointed out, 2 of those years probably look something like Tyreek Hill's deal in Miami, where they're like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You're good.
It's over there. You're never gonna see that, but it's over there. The first 3, and like I said, the practically guaranteed is important for Clark Hunt and ownership. The Chiefs got what they wanted in the 5 years because I have a distinct feeling there's going to be a fairly good-sized bonus at the beginning of this that gets to be prorated out over the length of those 5 years. And if I'm not mistaken, they already had void years built into that goofy 1-year deal that they hate doing, so they had to get. I'm sure they ate up all that crap and mixed that all into that bucket.
Yeah.
The practically guaranteed is, like I said, for the ownership. Chris is giddy because he got 95 million guaranteed practically. And what I mean practically is it sounds and looks to be like the accelerator style guaranteed money that is in Patrick Mahomes' deal. This year and next year we'll have large guaranteed chunks, and then the following year will guarantee a couple of days into the league year next year, allowing Clark to not put all 95 in the bank today, or whenever Chris officially signs the deal, and only have to go, 65, 70 probably would be my guess on that front of the guaranteed on the first 2 years, which is, like I said, where you're going to see probably a good sized roster or signing bonus type deal where it can be prorated out over the full 5 years that they've got that deal built, so that when you do go to do the back end of those 2 years that will eventually get to through when he's 33, There's going to be some dead money sitting there, probably, but not anything like what it would be if you
Nothing
guaranteed
crazy,
about, and you
especially
won't
with
be
the
locked
cap
into
number keep on
Mhm.
going up and up. I mean, this
And
won't look
so,
like too bad of a deal a couple years down the line, especially in comparison to a couple deals that are already out there on the market, and obviously any future deals signed. Better to
right.
get kind of a little bit out ahead early because it's only going to keep on going up. But
The other number
speaking,
that got floated before we let everybody kind of go
Mhm.
through what they feel about the structure and how that, or at least the overall details we've gotten so far on it, is with the AVV being the highest average, which means he got Aaron Donald's AVV, which I think was 31 and some change,
31.6.
right? 31.25
Yeah.
or whatever and some change.
yeah, 31 and a
Which
quarter.
it
He gets
sounds like he's
31
going to come in
2/3.
around
Right.
32.
Right. So I think the number is probably like 31,667 or 31,2 in that.
31.95 probably.
Well, honestly,
31.67 is what it reported as. 31 and 2/3, basically. Yeah.
I don't think the guaranteed money number is an accident, Tom, and I'm sure we can get into that. So there's that, but the 160 million ish is about what you would need for the AVV to make sense. And with
Yeah.
the guarantees we know being mostly in the first three, you can pretty much factor there's going to be at least 1 year on the back end of that's near 50, or in that higher mid 40 range. Probably both years at the back end of that deal are going to be in that 40 range. So it's going
So
to
what
be
does that mean,
interesting.
Tom?
Well, so I'm going to put the disclaimer that there are people who are much smarter than me who have, dug into this and all that. I know
Yeah, we're
when we
football
talk about
guys, not number guys, really.
the practical guarantees, investing in that early March, that doesn't necessarily mean that they have an out.
Oh.
They don't have an out, but his internet did. They don't have an out after 3 years for sure.
There you go. It was the
graphic.
graphics card.
They have an out after 3 years. They
Not after 2.
Not after 2. However, I think that the whole thing is built again to have some of that flexibility to say, hey, let's tweak this, let's tweak that. Same thing, if we're sitting there, 2 years into this deal and we're about to hit that, that like the accelerated the practical guarantee day, like, hey, why don't we make this a bonus or whatever, so we can convert it, free up some cap space. Again, it's one of those. It's got the, I know he's not with the team anymore, but the Tillis, I'm sure he worked on it before he left.
Probably.
Tillis,
Again, this has been going on for like 3 years. I guarantee he's had conversations involved in that deal.
Yeah, so it's got some of that DNA in it, and it's it's a lot of money, but it is. I think there's always going to be flexibility. Again, you can't push it down the road, and I think the biggest thing is, again, here's my thing with Chris. I know people are concerned. Oh, hey, he's he's going to be 32, 33, all that stuff. This is not his first big paycheck, right? He had his deal before this that was really big and went on to win 2 more Super Bowls. He played on the tag, or he held out. He played on this 1-year deal. He played just as hard as he's ever played. He's not, the money is important to him, but you're going to get Chris Jones on the field. You're going to get that effort. I said it earlier, and I'm going to say it again. I said all this in tweets. First of all, it's weird to see so many people upset about a team paying a Hall of Fame defensive tackle or defensive lineman. And secondly, you don't get as good as Chris is, and you don't stay as good as Chris is without a work ethic that is, bar none, above and beyond. Like, you don't. I know we don't hear about it. Chris is a really chill guy. He's kind of a goofy guy, kind of like, fight with her. But like we've seen it. We've seen those moments where he gets intense, right? Oh, yeah. Like I would not cross Chris Jones for, even if you offered to give me his contract. I just wouldn't do it because I wouldn't be around to spend any of it.
Yeah.
I just think behind the scenes, he's always done his job. He's always done what's been asked of him. Even when they were like, "Hey, let's go have you play defensive end," he's like, "All right, I guess we'll do that."
Even when they wouldn't pay him last year, look, y'all. He stood on the steps of Ronald McDonald House and said, "I am here doing my job.
He did do that. That's crazy. I remember that.
Yeah.
Ronald, guys, he's done everything on the field, off.
I mean, talk about a guy who's more deserving. Like Chris is up there. He has done nothing but, I mean, come in as a second-round pick, stay with the organization,
He's your
work his butt
heartbeat
off
on that defense.
Yeah, like his presence makes everybody around him better. And Randy, I know obviously big cornerstone of the defense, and like you said, a guy you can build around. But I mean, if I'm the Chiefs, like whatever number, just here you go. Like it doesn't. And people really got worked up, obviously, about the whole. A lot of people expect it to be less than Donald and in like the 26 to 28 range. It's like, who cares? You have Chris Jones under contract now. You know, it's like, come on.
Yeah, and people they want to say, oh, you're paying this to an older player. Okay, legit, like he's currently 29 years old. Okay, so he's 29, not even 30 yet. And if you look at him, he's 6'6", 310 pounds. But if anybody makes 310 pounds look good, Chris Jones, like.
Yeah, he moves that thing well.
I thought you were going to say me, but yeah, I guess I can agree with that.
I mean, other than Tom, Chris does a pretty good job of making 310 look good. But if you go back to last year, when
is that what he's listed at? Because I don't think
he's listed at he's listed 6'6", 310. But if we go by last year when he did slim down, he slimmed down last year to play more defensive end when we had that experiment that didn't quite work out as good.
He muscled up. I don't know that he's.
But
I'm get a scale. We'll bring a scale to Ronald McDonald House next time. We'll find out.
But what I'm trying to say though is that he is not built like a typical defensive lineman who's just constantly getting banged around, and he's going to have bad knees and bad hips, and he's got joint problems because he's just a gigantic freak. I mean, he is a very big guy, but he's built differently. Exactly. He's built different than most dudes that you see play the position. So he's still 29 years old. He's still in the prime of his career. He has a work ethic and a training regiment that has his body set up differently than most guys that play his position. We're still going to have prime Chris for a few more years, and I am ecstatic that we get to see him terrorize people in Arrowhead for a while longer yet. So.
Yeah, I mean, you just watch the Super Bowl. Like, if you say he's anywhere close to not being in his prime, you're sorely mistaken. Like, that dude is he's still got tons of juice left in the tank.
Ask Deion Dawkins if he's in his prime.
Yeah, like if you're asking if he still has more in the tank
of the 49ers offensive or any of their offensive linemen for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, so I checked ESPN and NFL.com and the Chiefs. I mean, he's listed at 310 everywhere.
Okay, so he's more like LeBron was listed at 310 or 300 when he was more like 330 and looked like he was chiseled out of stone. He's built more like that than he is Reggie White or Haloti Ngata or any of those dudes. There's a different. You can physically look at someone and can tell physical fitness and different. And don't get me wrong, those dudes are crazy good athletes. They are not the same body type.
Him being 6'6" also helps a lot too. I didn't realize he was 6'6".
He's
He's
a power forward, but he plays D tackle. Yeah, he's a big human.
So
the other part of this is everybody's worried about. Tom brought up the 26 to 28, and we talked about the guaranteed money, and we didn't think he was okay. Aaron Donald got that deal when the salary cap was $208 million or $212
I was going to mention this too. Yeah.
So there's a percentage of the salary cap there that he accounts for that is, I think, was like nearly 20% or something in that general vicinity when he signed his deal. 20 to 30% in that 20 to 30% range. Last year, if they would have signed Chris to the Aaron Donald deal, the salary cap was $224 million, and Chris would have been, again, in close to, and I don't have it right in front of me, but I can real quick. Hold on.
Yeah, in that range though.
It would be in that general vicinity. So let's see, 224 there.
Divided by carry the 3, add the 0.
He'd have been roughly 30% of the cap.
Yeah. Now with the cap, I mean, that's what I was going to mention for sure. Like, the salary cap raised an incredible amount this past year, more than most people expected. And obviously, it's going to keep going up, like we talked about earlier.
Sure,
like,
but just from last year to this year, it went up $31 million.
Which is a huge jump. Usually the cap goes up like 10, 15 million most years.
That's in there. Good. Those are good years. I remember salary caps going up $1 million or not moving.
I think this is also catching up now from the the COVID year.
Well, yeah, it is.
It's things are it's catching up to where it probably should have.
Sure.
All these new streaming deals.
Of course, Taylor Swift.
Right.
Taylor Swift.
She hasn't even factored in yet, though. That's coming in the next couple of years. Don't worry; those numbers will go
wait
up.
Wait till they get her for the halftime show.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't think she'll ever do it. She doesn't need it anyway.
Maybe
it's a free gig. Why would you anyway? So the percentage of the cap now that he's going to account for is less than it would have been, I believe, even with if the guarantees are close to what we think they are, which is pretty much what they kind of have to be based on structure-wise. He's not going to be as big of a percentage of the cap hit as he would have, and that's really what the Chiefs, most franchises care about is percentages that players account for, where they can structure for, how much you account for in the cap total. So if you had to go up a couple $1 million and you knew it, and the salary, and by the way, the salary cap is probably going up next year. Well, I know that most of you guys probably all know. What committee is Clark Hunt, I believe, the chair of for the NFL?
The massage committee. Oh, never mind.
No, that's the wrong owner.
Jerry Jones.
I was going to say Robert Kraft, but sure, go ahead.
That's right.
He's the head of the finance committee, if I'm not mistaken, or at least a major part of the finance committee at the point for the NFL. If I was going to have to pay Chris Jones, and I needed it to be a certain percentage of the cap, and I knew it wasn't going to happen last year, but I knew I could probably get it done this year as long as everything goes okay in the in-between, I'm probably taking that route.
Probably go ahead and just do that, yeah.
For all of the reasons that we've mentioned, the deal makes a ton of sense because you basically have to do this at this point. They won again, for one. So now you're in a three-peat mode where if you don't bring him back and pay him, like what are
you even trying?
Yeah, I think the three-peat probably factors in a little bit to this too.
It does.
I mean,
and it's probably why it made that check easier
like
too.
2 years ago, or even maybe last year, obviously it probably doesn't really happen like that.
You
but
saw it. They told you last year.
It doesn't happen. Yeah, exactly. But in this situation, it's like, hey, we're trying to do something.
Kansas City, the money back they blew. That's what
Kansas City is trying to do something. Brett Veach is trying to do something that literally no other team in NFL history has done before. So to do that, you're going to have to make some sacrifices, and you're going to have to show out a little more to really make sure you're securing the cornerstone of your franchise for the next couple years to help them guarantee that three-peat. So it's great. This is great news. It's a great day. And now, the rest of the Chiefs' free agency plans can kind of commence. We have technically the tampering window opens tomorrow, March 11th. A free agency officially begins the 13th. So we've got some internal moves we still got to make. L'Jarius Sneed almost more than likely going to be traded. Probably about 80% chance.
Let's just start there. Let's start right there, and then we can go through.
Okay.
Well, hold on, because before we get into all that, because I know I told you guys I'm on a time crunch, so I'm going to throw my thoughts in and I'm going to gracefully bow out.
Okay.
So you guys can continue this conversation because it's a good conversation. I'm sad that I have other obligations, but as Garrett said, this is huge because this is the biggest piece of the puzzle that you had to figure out what to do with in the offseason. The biggest question for the Chiefs offseason already answered, right? There are other questions that they got to figure out: left tackle, some defensive end stuff, some wide receiver stuff.
Yeah, man.
The biggest question all offseason came down to Chris Jones. What do we do with Chris Jones? We've got our answer. They'll figure out the L'Jarius Sneed stuff. The good news about getting this deal done, one, you have a couple days to kind of work with some people to restructure, move some money around, but also it's going to move his cap number down, and it's going to be a smaller cap number year one. So there's two quick thoughts that I have. One, I think this is like we've seen them kind of come out the last couple of years, usually take a big swing in free agency. Jawan Taylor and some other guys. it wouldn't surprise me. This is really their big swing. So be patient with him. Yeah. There's some value pieces out there that I think that they'll kick the tires on. They're going to have to move some money around. They're going to have to figure out what to do with L'Jarius Sneed, all that. But they are in some sense playing with house money. But also, we've brought it up a couple times. This whole idea of Clark Hunt being cheap. No, his checkbook is open right now. The amount he's already spent on Spagnuolo, I'm sure. I don't know,
scheduled a Brinks truck delivery, like 3 of them.
The way he's writing checks right now, that pen's going to melt or catch on fire with all the coaches and Frank.
Jones. He's gonna end up getting flagged for fraud. Now, here's what I expect them to do. This is what Kansas City likes to do, especially going into the draft. They're going to go find those value pieces and kind of hedge against their biggest needs. So, look at them to grab a swing tackle kind of guy, a veteran who can play in a pinch. Look at them to, go find a veteran wide receiver who they can kind of or maybe they grab Noah Fant and just let him be the pass catcher. But, lots of options out there. They're going to fill out that roster. I hope they can, maybe bring a couple more of their guys back. Mike Edwards is a guy that I'm going to keep a close eye on. Here's the other thing, and we talk about perspective with this team all the time. There's so much depth. I was looking at safety free agency. I was like, man, it'd be really nice to bring Mike Edwards back. And then I remembered, oh, wait, we've still got Justin Reed and Shamari Connor, and Brian Cook is coming back next year. Yep. Like, we're good. We've already got 3 safeties on the roster. Yep. Mike Edwards would be a luxury. And to Brett Veach's credit, he's done a phenomenal job of finding those guys here and there, to fill in. Drew Tranquil, that deal, I know we didn't get a chance to talk about it at length. Really great to see Drew stay because he's taken to this team and this team has taken to him. Huge piece of that linebacker core. They trust him a lot. If I remember correctly, he's the green dot behind Nick. So that's a big deal, especially in his first year here because Spagnuolo's defense, not simple at all. He probably went from playing checkers to chess when he came to Kansas City.
Are you saying, Brandon? Never mind.
I am saying exactly what you think I'm saying, but without, with intact.
Without between the lines.
Yeah. So I just look for those little moves. I know everybody's desperate for a splash move at wide receiver. I know they're, looking for that. Just be patient. And I could be wrong, but this is my prediction. Be patient. And I'd love it if we're, tomorrow morning we wake up and the Chiefs are like, full send. We're going to sign Christian Wilkins anyways and just ruin the NFL. But,
holy what?
That'd be a great D-line, though.
Crazy things. If you can't, you don't have to worry about scoring points if the other team's quarterback is dead. So,
all my friends are dead.
Whatever strategy they want to employ. And one last disclaimer, and just because as we're getting into free agency, it is perfectly natural to talk about the different, financial aspects of this roster construction and moves that could be made or people who may be moved, all that stuff. I will remind you all, as we have reminded people consistently on this podcast, that these players are people and that when you make comments about another person's money or their livelihood, you should remember that. And, I know that we have never said anything bad about NVS on this roster or on this team, but some of y'all get real personal with it. Anyways, keep that in mind as we're navigating free agency, as we're navigating contract stuff. Let's not FAFO. So on that controversial moment, I'm going to leave the podcast and let the boys clean up. Chiefs Kingdom, I love you guys. Farewell, my friends.
Peace out.
I'm back to everything I just dumped in your laps.
Thanks, buddy.
Yep. You went out with a bang. Tom's right. As that player, he might be referenced to play stupid games, win stupid prizes. It's kind of one of those things.
He tweeted that.
Yeah, he did. So with that, we won't go too much longer here. The main topic of this episode was Chris Jones and the contract. But as Tom alluded to, free agency, and I alluded to a little bit earlier, free agency is right around the corner here. We're probably going to have another episode very soon talking a lot of free agency stuff. But quickly before we get out of here, a couple big targets, either positions, names, whatnot that you guys might have. I know Tom mentioned a couple of them, but what are your guys' thoughts on what the Chiefs should do next with their remaining money in salary cap.
Chris Jones has an impact on a lot of these things now because, like I said, we talked about it for a couple of months now, I think, in regards to the offseason, that the pieces and things that had to move first were 95, which is now done, and L'Jarius. Something had to be figured out with L'Jarius. Well, they figured out he's tagged. They figured out, go find out what your market is. It's awfully quiet.
It has been a little quiet. Yeah, it has been a little quiet on the Snead front.
I think there's a couple of different reasons for that. One, I think he's probably going to be more valuable to the Chiefs and will be more of a asset on like draft night potentially.
Yeah, maybe a draft night trade.
Is one factor that could be there for Kansas City. The other factor is other teams may not be as quick to make a trade for him because of draft night and because they know they have to trade and pay him. The other aspect is they paid Chris. They now have the flexibility we didn't necessarily know because remember,
I've been thinking about this all day.
Ian Rappaport is the first person who tweeted he could play on the tag if they don't find what they're wanting.
Right.
Yeah, we don't have to get rid of Snead.
Getting Chris done now does a couple of things. A, it gives them the flexibility to go, play the tag. We like you. Come try to get the third ring with us before you go test the market. And maybe that market isn't as good this year as you thought it might be. Or maybe there's not as much of a trade market for you as we'd like for there to be. Which is the villainous portion of the franchise tag, but that is what the NFL has allowed. Now, to that same end, they just paid Chris. We pay our stars. We paid our superstar.
Yeah, so maybe just
you're a star. Are you a superstar?
Get a long-term deal done.
Are you a superstar?
He is a superstar.
But
I'd call him a superstar.
That's fine. Corner play is the most volatile play in the NFL, position to position, year to year. Not saying
he got that punch though.
He's older, technically speaking, and he has knee stuff that's been around, and Kansas City knows it. They deal with it. They understand it. They tolerate it. Not all teams will necessarily be thrilled about that knee thing, which has been mentioned. Yeah. This also could change the tune to L'Jarius of, well, they paid him this year after not paying him last year, basically franchise tag and work around 1-year dealed him. Then the cap went up and what he was asking for fit better. Why don't I just
more reasonable
play on the tag, make 5 times what I made my entire career on the tag for the year? I don't get the security I want, but I get to chase the three-peat. I get to play on the tag. I get the boys. And if the cap jumps crazy again next year, they may just find a way to pay me like Chris if we win another ring.
Yeah, no
kidding. It changes mentalities and mindsets because the narrative, as everybody talked about, was the Chiefs aren't paying anybody but Patrick. They're not giving anybody deals. Well, they just made Chris more money than Aaron Donald.
Yeah,
that's
and Randy. When you think about a potential Snead deal too, Jalen Johnson from the Bears he was franchise tagged and then he got a long-term deal done. Yeah. Jalen Johnson's 2 years younger than Snead, not as good of a player, but that at least gives you a baseline
for what a
long-term deal might look like. I think it was around $19 million a year that Johnson got. So
basically the tag.
The tag is I think the tag is around that number anyways. So yeah, Randy, what do you think about Snead and going forward with the Chiefs' potential free agent plans?
Yeah, I mean, Kyle kind of hit it right on the head. As soon as Chris Jones signed last night, I was super pumped and, you're excited to have him. And then all of a sudden the light bulb went on too. You're like, all right, we talked about this before. Snead doesn't necessarily have to go anywhere this year.
Yeah.
And like Kyle just said too, it doesn't necessarily give him the long-term security of a new contract, but It's more money than he's made his entire career so far playing on that tag. Maybe it's just enough, that, you hang out. You didn't maybe get paid or what you wanted this year, but maybe there's an opportunity to get paid or extended, during the season, at the end of the season. There's all sorts of wiggle rooms and different possibilities now with Chris signing and his cap number being lower, the cap being higher. It's one of the first things I thought about. I'm like, okay, this is not all doom and gloom when it comes to Snead. Like, there's a light potentially at the end of the tunnel to where we can see this dude still being on the roster this year, causing problems for all sorts of people. So
yeah, and once again, this is the year to do it. This is the year to really push the cap as far as you can.
You want to stick around and be part of history.
Yeah. Steve's part
remotely, this, if it comes into this much play in your thought process when it comes to your career and money and everything else, like everybody says they want to chase rings, and he's got a couple of rings. No one has 3 rings in a row. If you want to potentially have a shot to be part of the first franchise in NFL history to do it, maybe that plays a part in your decision making.
I mean, yeah, Snead's part definitely. Snead also, I mean, the Chiefs gave him permission to seek a trade technically, but he doesn't really have leverage. He doesn't necessarily. It's not free agency where he can just go, all right, I'm just going to go sign a new deal. Right. Really, I mean, yeah, Snead would be very smart to stick around. His agents would be smart to have him stick around. More importantly, though, from the Chiefs' perspective, Brett Veach, like, once again, this is the year to just fully get every single star, every person that you need back, fully load up. I mean, if it has to be a 1-year franchise tag deal and then he walks, or you serve something else happens offseason, fine. But like, if there's 1 year that you want to have Snead on the roster, this is the one right here.
Well, and
we're also I'm just saying just one real thing too. Like, it's also coming into a draft this year that every position that we need to add depth and add some more players is a fantastic draft for us position wise. Wideouts, DBs to add some depth,
tackle,
defensive tackle, offensive tackle. Yep. It is a fantastic spot, especially even in the spots that we're drafting at. There's going to be some serious talent where we are coming in the draft. So if there's a spot to pay the dudes we have now, plug in a couple of these rookies that are going to be some pretty good players, it's almost a perfect storm for it.
Well, and you have, this is where we talked about, they are set up to at any point in time press the go for it button whenever they choose to. Mm-hmm. Because of Patrick's deal. And the way he's drafted the last 3 years has provided them an amount of flexibility that you're not supposed to have in the NFL. They have, if they got L'Jarius Dunn this year, long term, it's a doable thing to get him done long term this year if they want to.
Yeah.
And I say that because they have $30-ish plus million in the piggy bank to use. And I know that everybody's like, oh, if you do that, then the next, and yes, that is technically true. If you are operating on the impression that you are going to actually let that deal continue in its current form. I don't think they're going to. Mm-hmm. I think every single bit of that I think if they so chose to, they yank every dollar from his bonus, his restructure that they can do. They can pay Snead. They can still probably pay one of the other guys that's going to need a deal next year if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then plan on tearing up his contract and starting over and redoing everything out, another 10-year deal, just like they did on the first one again, so that they can just keep doing this.
I mean, that's how NFL GMs and teams have worked the past couple of years.
It's what
Brady
kicking
the can down the road.
It's what Brady and the Patriots did, but they did it in like 3-year deals where it was always some crazy goofy segment, and it was like, well, that number doesn't exist, and this number's over here, and it's the same thing. The Chiefs are just doing it in long exchanges because they don't have. It allows them more flexibility, and they don't have to tear it up and start over as often.
Right.
It's the what you've built for is now in front of you, and I think that's kind of an interesting thought process based on the way that they talked. And I don't even as soon as the game ended, It was like, yeah, 2, cool. We knew this is what we wanted. We actually want that one though.
Yeah.
Because
that is still a
they
really wild part.
know, but it's not like the players are thinking it, but the team is built to it also. That's the difference.
I mean, they're set up for
That's
so
where
much long-term success with the amount of young people that they have on the team, the contract situations, the
you've
different.
got options. I just think if you're Snead, if you saw the money that you just got, that Jalen Johnson just got, and yes, you're better. We agree. Great. You're also older, and you have a something in your knees that we know and deal with, but not everybody knows and deals with. That's why I think part of the reason they gave him the go ahead to go seek a trade was because it was like, yeah, go find out what's out there.
It might not be as bright of grass on the other side over there.
Hardman. Ask McCole. Ask Tyreek. Tyreek can say whatever he wants, and I'm sure he's very happy with the sun and the money and all the fun times in Miami.
A lot of money. That's about it, though.
Listen to his podcast interviews about this after they won this one, and now he's missed 2, and now you can hear it, man.
I mean, basically, if you look at any former player, I mean, you look at like Colin Saunders from last year, Juan Thornhill. I mean,
that's a guy.
Basically, every guy's come out and just been like, "Man, it was pretty nice in KC, though." Huh? I mean,
I love Juan, but if I had to pick, man, I would like to see Colin is a dude that I would not be mad about being back in KC.
Oh no.
So I think there's definitely a possibility, like we said, that Snead they can probably get a deal worked out
Chris
before.
Just changes so much of everything.
Yeah, it changes a lot. So with that being said, that'll kind of wrap up this episode. Like I said, we will definitely be back very soon for some free agency previews. I'm sure we'll probably get some free agency news of potential contracts being agreed to. Who knows how quick the Chiefs will be this year as they were last year, but that's the fun part.
Starts tomorrow, right? Like midnight tonight.
Tampering. Yeah, legal tampering starts tomorrow.
7 hours from now.
Yeah, and
while we're recording this,
officially begins the 13th. So yeah, there's going to be a lot more on the plate. Thank you all so much for tuning in and listening to us this episode. Be sure to follow us at Kingdom Says Pod on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Check out Randy and Tom and Josh Wingate over at Kingdom Recon. They got some good draft stuff going on. It's very close to us being in draft talk season, but we got a little free agency stuff to get to first. So once free agency kind of settles, then that kind of really reveals what teams might be doing in the draft. And so we're going to have a lot of that to talk about. But it is a great day here in Kansas City and the rest of Chiefs Kingdom because Chris Jones is going to be a Chief probably for life. So that is good news to have a Hall of Famer sticking around for the long haul. So with that being said, thank you all so much for listening, tuning in, and following along. And we will see you guys on the next episode of The Kingdom Says.